Well, first thing I want to do is acknowledge you guys, because you being here says, I want to change. I want to up the game in my life. I want another level. I want to make some changes in the next year coming up. And many of you work out in Trinity Fitness, and I think what we're seeing, what we're discovering is, all right, I'm crushing the workouts, but I'm not maybe getting all the results that I would like to see. And all of that comes to nutrition. So we've got to dial in the nutrition. And I know that it takes time, it takes energy, it takes commitment for you guys to want to be here tonight, first of all, and then commit to something greater, to challenge yourself, to up your game. And so right off the bat, I want to acknowledge you and thank you for being here tonight and committing to that. That excites me. So my name is Jason Palmisano. I am a husband, first of all, to my wife, 28 years coming up, yes, 28 years of marriage. I am a father, 4 kids. I'm a grandfather of a sweet little girl. And I've lived in this county for 41 years now, yeah. And it's been amazing. I graduated high school from Melbourne High many, I'm not even going to say what year that was. It was many years ago. But you know what was interesting? In high school, I played football, and I was constantly on the scale and going to buffets and trying to gain weight. I could not break 174 and a half pounds. It's like, I just want to can I get to 175? And I hopped on the scale this morning, and I'm 168 pounds. And I'm 6.5 pounds lighter than I was in high school. I have heightened and sustained energy levels greater than when I played wide receiver at the University of North Carolina. And all I want to do for you tonight is to share with you, not necessarily my secrets. I don't think they're secrets. One of my mentors always says, well, it's common knowledge, but it's not common practice. What I'm going to share with you tonight probably isn't rocket science. You're going to go like, oh, I knew that. Like, yeah, I know you know that. Like, if I asked you tonight, if I asked you right now, before we got into any of this, if I said, what's one thing you can do tonight to really tighten up your nutrition? You'd probably list off not just one thing, you'd probably list off a handful of things that you would do to tighten up. You probably don't even need me. You know what to do. Common knowledge, but not common practice. But what I do want to do is share with you tonight some of the things that I've put into practice into my life to give me heightened and sustained energy levels and vibrancy and stamina. Don't we want that in life? Don't we want more than that? Let me ask you this. If you had 3 times more energy than you do right now, what would you try and achieve and accomplish in your life? If you had 3 times more energy than you do right now. It's possible. Oh, absolutely possible. And it's all about how we're fueling our bodies. And so tonight, we're going to get into that. But I'm going to share one of my secrets with you because, you know, I said I'm 6.5 pounds lighter, and it's been sustained now, even when I was in high school. And I have more energy than when I played wide receiver in college. But it wasn't always like that. I was a classic yo-yoer. Sometimes my weight would get up to 206 pounds on this little 5'9" frame. And then I would get so mad at myself, I would discipline myself, and I would go without food for 14 days. Literally. I would just drink water. My wife's over here shaking her head. And we would go out to eat, and the whole family would be there eating, except me. I'm just looking. And I would just be very hard on myself. I would go 10 days, sometimes 7 days, if I yo-yoed up. And then I would slam myself back down, like, I'm going to be right down here. And all of that was my mentality and how I looked toward food, how I viewed food, my mindset toward food. And so now it's very different. Now it's just sustained. My energy levels are high. My weight, I keep very, very steady, and it's very natural. And so I want to share that with you tonight. But my mindset shift was this. I was very selfish when it came to food. Maybe some of you can relate to this. I was the guy who was a stress eater. I sought comfort food in times of stress. And so I would go, well, what's gonna make me feel comfortable right now? What's gonna make me feel safe? What's gonna make me feel good? What can I put, what kind of foods can I eat right now that are really gonna hit my taste buds? What do I wanna have? What's gonna taste good to me? There's a lot of I and me in those statements. Did you notice that? That's why I yo-yoed, because it was all about me. My nutrition was all about me. It's going to be what makes me feel good. What's going to make me feel better in my moments of stress and anxiety. Now I don't think about food like that, and here's where I want to encourage you tonight, and if I had any influence on you tonight towards food, it would be this. View food, and here's how I view it now. I ask myself, what can I eat that will help me show up in extraordinary ways for the people that I love the most in my life and for the work that matters most? I want to show up extraordinary. I want to show up energetic. I want to show up vibrant and alive for my granddaughter, for my kids, for my wife, for you guys here tonight. And I get excited, and I hope you can feel that energy too. But it all comes down to how you're fueling yourself. And I would encourage you to think about food like that. What is it that you can eat on a regular basis that's going to cause you to show up in extraordinary ways for the work that you love most, for your contribution back to the world, for the people that matter most around you? And so that's where we're going to dig in, all right? So people ask me all the time, all right, what do you eat? That's the question. And if you've heard my nutrition seminars before, you're going to hear some shifts and changes tonight because I've actually lightened up a little bit. And yeah, right? I am not so strict on my view towards nutrition, and you'll probably see some of those things tonight. And we'll talk about them. But primarily, when people ask me what do I eat, here's what I eat. I eat whole food, primarily plant-based. I eat lots of vegetables. I eat some fruit, some lean meat, and a lot of healthy dietary fats. We're going to talk about that because the misnomer is I can't eat fat, it will make me fat. The opposite is true if it's good, healthy dietary fat. Okay, so we're going to talk about that tonight. You ready? Yep. All right, Michaela's here. She's filming this, so man, you're going to get this on video too if you get some reminders, okay? So this will be good. All right, we're going to talk about 3 of the macronutrients. You guys already know this: proteins, fats, carbohydrates. And when it comes to protein, we got to have some lean protein in your nutrition, particularly if you're trying to lean out a little bit. And I'm going to explain to you why. First of all, when I talk about lean protein, red meat that is lean is pretty much all the loins. So tenderloin, pork loin, sirloin, flank steaks. There's some others in there. But look for the lean cuts of meat. And then fish, Publix, Wednesdays, $5 sushi. It's good stuff. It's my go-to. Fish, seafood, chicken, turkey, all of those are lean for you, okay? So lean protein. And what that does, dietary, that's the D, induced thermogenesis. Now, that sounds complicated, but it's really not, because how many of you have ever sat around a campfire before? Yeah, all of us have. Or maybe you lived up north somewhere and your house had a fireplace in it and your dad or your mom or you even got a fire going. Dietary induced thermogenesis is simply this. If you sit around a campfire and somebody throws logs on that, gets the fire going, and all of a sudden it's stoked, right? And it's kicking out a lot of heat and light from that fire. And you're sitting there and you're enjoying it, right? The flames are going and you're kind of watching that campfire. And after a while, that flame begins to die down. And not as much heat's coming off of that, right? What do you got to do to stoke the fires? Yeah, fuel. What kind of fuel? You're throwing logs back on that fire, right? Absolutely. So you throw logs back on the fire, and all of a sudden the flames begin to rage, the heat comes up. Protein, here's my point on that. Protein are the logs that stoke the fires of your metabolism. Lean protein, it takes your body 2 to 3 times more energy to burn protein than it does carbohydrates and fat. So as you eat bits of lean protein throughout your day, your metabolic rate, the rate at which your body burns calories, stays elevated, and you burn calories faster just by having some bits of lean protein in there. That's why they are the logs that stoke the fires of your metabolism. So lean bits of protein, you will naturally lean out. Here's the problem. In America, we forget what small amounts are, right? I mean, we'll go to Texas Roadhouse, and I'm not picking on Texas Roadhouse. I like Texas Roadhouse. But you can pick any restaurant. I'm just picking Texas Roadhouse. How big are the steaks? They're pretty big, right? I mean, the smallest steak on their menu is a 6-ounce sirloin, and the guys aren't getting that. That's for the ladies. 6-ounce sirloin. Then there's the 10-ounce strip and the 14 or 16-ounce T-bone. The amount of protein you need is 6 ounces for the guys. How big is that? It's the size of your palm. So if you look at your palm, not counting your fingers, the size of your palm and the thickness of your palm, that's it. Not your spouse's, yours. For gals, 4 ounces. Guys, 6 ounces. Other than that, we're ingesting too much protein, backfires on you. Your body can't metabolize that much, stores it as fat, over time damages the liver. Okay, so just be mindful of your portion sizes. But lean protein, so for breakfast, all right, so give me some ideas for breakfast, Jason. A couple of eggs, throw some shrimp in them. Have some leftover chicken from the night before, or leftover lean meat from the night before. I don't know who said it. Somewhere, somebody said for breakfast you have to have a bran muffin, banana, and orange juice. It's the worst thing you can have. Have some lean protein. Get your body burning calories at a faster rate earlier and maintain that throughout your day. Okay? Lean protein is going to be key if you want to hit some weight loss and naturally be leaner. All right, fats. Any questions on proteins? Andy?
Banana is one of the worst things you can eat.
You know what? If you're looking for weight loss, Andy, which you may not be, you're okay eating bananas. Occasionally, I'll have a banana. I'm going to talk about bananas and the tropical fruit as we get more toward the carbohydrates, but that's a good question. Thank you. Anybody else specific to protein at this point?
What about the filet at Texas Roadhouse? They have a 6-ounce filet there. Is that worse than a sirloin?
No, your filet is fine. I would limit the amount of going out to eat as much as you can, because there's just a lot of filler, and the oils aren't necessarily healthy. And Mike, I used to have a cheat day. One day a week, I'm all out. But I would feel horrible after that day, right? So I limit it to a cheat meal. And it's our date night. Whenever that is that we pick out a place, and we'll have whatever we want, not feel guilty about it. Next day, we're back at it, all right? So think cheat meal, not cheat day. Fats. A lot of people think, I can't eat fat because I'm going to get fat. Well, that's half true and half false. It depends on which kind of fat you're having. If you're having, fried food and fast food and fatty processed cuts of meat like bologna and hot dogs and salami and pepperoni and those sorts of things, well, then of course we're going to get fat. But good dietary healthy fat, got to have it. It's awesome. What am I talking about? Well, avocados, olives, olive oil, all coconut products, coconut oil, coconut milk, coconut meat, coconut flour, coconut water. I don't even know if I said that already, but all coconut products. That I said avocado oil, yes. Nuts, seeds, almonds, cashews, walnuts, macadamia nuts, seeds, all those things are phenomenal. Here's the cool part. Fats keep you feeling fuller longer. So the satiating factor in fats is fantastic. You burn fat at a higher rate. Your energy levels are up, regulates your hormones and battles depression. So if you feel like, why do I get the blues every now and then? Man, a handful of cashews are fantastic. Keeping your healthy fats helps you regulate your hormones, battles depression, and bottom line is they're flavorful, aren't they? So they add a lot of flavor to our palate, which is good. So I recommend that to you. Other than the proteins and the fats, I'm pretty much going to stop there. And I know I didn't hammer home a lot on proteins. Dietary-induced thermogenesis. They're going to keep you, lean protein's going to keep you burning your calories at a higher rate. It's going to put your body in a fat-burning state rather than a fat-storing state. The majority of us in here, I would say, right now we're in a fat-storing state. You don't want to be there. I'm going to teach you how you get there. I'm going to teach you how to get out of that tonight. All right? But I just wanted to get you a little bit of lean protein. You don't need a ton of it. If you have too much of it, stored as fat in your body, damaging to the liver. You got to have your healthy dietary fats, the nuts, seeds, healthy oils, coconut, olive oil, avocado oil. Eat your avocados and olives, all right? I want to move on to carbohydrates because that's where a lot of our hang-up is. All right, so you guys ready for that? All right, so we're going to camp out on carbohydrates a little bit tonight. All right, so carbohydrates, I want you to think of carbohydrates in two buckets. One of those buckets is filled with gold coins and diamonds. All right, and it's sitting there, it's looking good to you. The other bucket's filled with cow manure. Not real attractive. Well, which bucket are you going to go after? I want the diamonds. I want the gold. I don't want the cow manure. What's the cow manure bucket of carbohydrates? Pasta, breads, cereals, cakes, muffins, croissants, bagels, chips, crackers. You want me to stop? Lasagna, baked ziti, calzones, strombolis. Oh, yeah. All the comfort food, right? Yeah, that's what's wreaking havoc. So when we think of carbohydrates, we think of all those things. Right? We think, oh, okay, well, if I'm not going to have any of that, then I must be having a low carbohydrate diet. No, that's only one of the buckets. We forget about the gold and the diamonds, and that is the vegetables and the fruits, the much more healthful and helpful food for you. So we're going to talk about that tonight, all right? So if you were to, and I think we are on this 28-day challenge, the foods that we're going to eliminate: sugar, and I'm mentioning these now because these are carbohydrates. Sugar now, inarguably, you can't even debate it, is the number one cause of diabetes, Alzheimer's, obesity, a host of other health issues. All right, so sugar is public enemy number one. It wreaks havoc on your body. We're going to eliminate sugar on this challenge. We're also going to eliminate, I'm not going to put grains. I'm going to put wheat. All right? Okay, I used to say grains. Eliminate all grains. That's not a bad thing to eliminate all grains for a 28-day challenge. I'm going to share with you why. But I'm sharing that because I wouldn't be congruent with who I am, because I eat oats. I'll have quinoa. I will have some rice in my diet before. Never used to, especially when we did these challenges. I'm like, no grains, they're out, for the reasons I'll share with you. But primarily, the culprit is wheat. So we're going to talk about wheat. When you think about grains, I mean, how many of you have had spelt this week? Millet? Quinoa? Maybe some quinoa. We're going to give a few hands up there. And then some rice and oats, maybe some corn, maybe some more hands would go up there. But primarily, when we talk about grains, we're talking about wheat. And I'll give you an analogy like this. How many of you have a cell phone other than an Android or an iPhone? Raise your hand. So you got a flip phone or, you know, the old Blackberries, anybody? Usually there's one or two. Yeah, nobody. Yeah, because Android and iPhone have over 96% of the market share now. And when it comes to grains, wheat has over 96% of the market share. Because that's the number one grain that we eat, and unfortunately it is nothing like the grain of your grandma and great-grandma. It's Frankenwheat. It's so genetically modified, and it wreaks havoc on your body. Here's why, okay? So here's why. Number one, wheat and oats and rice and some of the others also have some of these issues. But primarily we're going to talk about wheat. Anti-nutrients. There's lots of nutrients are good, but anti-nutrients are no good. And wheat is going to have 3 major anti-nutrients in them. The first one is lectins. Stay with me on this. Lectins. If you were to take a lectin, shrink it down and look at it under a microscope, it would look like this twig right here. It would have sharp, jagged, pointy edges, and on the tips of these edges right here would be sticky proteins. And you eat your garlic bread or calzone or pizza, whatever it is that you're eating, right? It's full of lectins. You metabolize that, and these lectins enter the small and large intestine, and they're floating through there like these jagged edges. With those sticky proteins, they cling to the walls of your large and small intestine, and they grip on. Well, then food comes in, right, comes behind it and forces it and dislodges the lectin, but it wants to hold on, but it's forced to dislodge, and so it tears, and gouges the walls of your small and large intestine. Now you've got microscopic tears in your intestines, and that's called leaky gut. There's more people walking around with leaky gut than we care to know. What's the big deal with leaky gut? Well, now with those tears in your small and large intestine, you have partially digested food, fecal matter, that's able to leak out into your bloodstream, and it causes a host of autoimmune diseases, inflammation, all kinds of health issues. That, my friend, is a great reason why to eliminate wheat from your diet right there. All right, lectins. Number 2, so these guys right here, they will destroy your gut over time. How many of you know 60 to 70% of your immune system is located in your gut, right? So the healthier you can keep your gut, the healthier you're going to be. Lectins, they work to destroy that. Another anti-nutrient that we need to know about are phytates. The best analogy that I can give you for phytates is this sponge wrapped in a plastic baggie. The sponge is the nutrients that are found in the foods that we like. You think about, copper and iron and calcium and zinc and magnesium, all the micronutrients that our body needs for optimum performance. All the fruits and vegetables have all of those antioxidants and phytonutrients in them. But we'll eat our salads with a plate of what? Garlic bread or garlic knots or pasta full of phytates. And all the copper, the iron, the magnesium, the zinc, that's the sponge, want to absorb that into your body. Phytates act as a plastic baggie around the good nutrients. And they're now no longer bioavailable for your body. Your body can't absorb them. So what happens? They're excreted out. They're flushed out of your body. And here's a fact for you. 1 out of every 2 ladies, half of you ladies in here, over the age of 50, will be diagnosed with osteoporosis. It's a weakening of the skeletal system. and it's due to a lack of calcium. My question is it because we're not getting enough calcium, or is it because of all of the anti-nutrients, all the other stuff that we're eating? Because in America, we've got plenty of calcium. We've got healthy foods, right? Are we not getting the calcium, or are we eating too much of the harmful foods? What about iron? Iron deficiencies, anemia. So that sponge is like iron, but the phytate is a plastic bag around it, and you flush it out of your body. It's not bioavailable to you. So that's the danger. Wheat is full of lectins and phytates. So are oats, so is rice. But again, we have a tendency to limit those foods. And wheat, we have a tendency to overindulge and go overboard on. I'm going to stop there. And then third, you guys know this one, gluten. Gluten is the third anti-nutrient. We're pretty familiar with gluten. I think restaurants are doing a great job catching up and having a lot of gluten-free options on the menu. Gluten is a Greek word that means glue. It's a binding agent. It's what holds food together. It gives food flavor. If you think about a guy spinning the pizza dough, it's what gives pizza dough its stretchiness. It's the gluten. Gives sponge cake the sponginess. It keeps cookies together. It thickens sauces and things like that in food. But it also works to destroy the microvilli in your small intestine. So if you think these hair-like substances, they're designed to absorb all of the micronutrients we just talked about. You know, the zinc, the iron, the copper. But when those are destroyed, and they're irreversibly destroyed by gluten, they're gone. And now your body can't absorb the nutrients it needs due to the gluten. So you combine all three of these together, and you're wrecking your health and wellness pretty quickly. So all as I'm saying in the 28 challenge, for those of you who are opting to do the 28-day challenge, is to hit the reset button. Give your body a break. Allow it to reset. Get rid of all of these things. And I'll promise you, you'll watch. You're like, oh my goodness, I don't have any more joint pain. Well, it's because of these things right here. This is where your joint pain's coming from, more than likely. I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor, but I've seen it over and over. I've watched it play out in my life. I told Wendy, Wendy and I went and we got pizza the other night, and I don't know what appetizer or whatever we got, and we split. And I woke up the next day, and my sinuses were swollen, my fingers were, my joints were hurting again, my ankles. I feel it in my ankles, my knees, my hands, and my sinuses. When I get all that out of my body, I don't have any of that. And give your body a rest. Allow it to recoup. Allow it to re-energize. Hit the reset button. 28 days is a perfect time to do that. Okay? So these three right here are what I call the three thugs that are traveling down the dark corridors of your intestines, wreaking havoc. So eliminate these, primarily by eliminating wheat. No sugar, no wheat. Now, I want to do one more thing before we move on from carbohydrates. I want to talk about the glycemic index. In 1981, the University of Toronto came out with what's called the glycemic index. You guys have heard about the glycemic index? What is the glycemic index? It simply is a chart that rates how fast sugar is absorbed into your bloodstream from the foods that you eat. All right, and the higher, here's the rule of thumb. It's not hard and fast. It's kind of a rule of thumb. The higher the glycemic index, the less healthy that food is for you. When you're dealing with wheat, we're high on the index. Okay, so not only are you dealing with this culprit, if that wasn't enough, we're dealing with a higher glycemic index. That's a problem, particularly if you're interested in weight loss. Here's why. Glycemic index is based off of 100, that's glucose. All the other foods are based off of that 100 glucose score. 70 and above is considered high on the glycemic index. You want to stay away from those. 56 to 69 is considered mid-range. And then everything below 56, that's where you really want to camp out. Okay? So, bread, you know, everything we talked about with wheat, we can just put wheat up here because it's all up there. Here's what happens. You eat a high glycemic, and by the way, Andy, going back to your bananas, to answer that question more specifically for you, all of the tropical fruit, like bananas, papayas, mangoes, kiwi, pineapple, the tropicals, they're all very high in the glycemic. So what I'm about to share with you applies. I know I'm primarily talking about wheat, but it's all high glycemic foods, okay? What happens is, remember, it's a chart that rates how fast sugar is absorbed into your body and spikes your blood sugar. That's what this represents. High glycemic food spikes your blood sugar high, quickly. Well, you know, so you're walking. So for breakfast you had orange juice, a banana, and a bagel, and now you're here. You just took yourself pretty much up high, and your body now, as it starts your day, has to deal with a high blood sugar level. You can't. It's not going to just keep it like that. Your body seeks homeostasis. All right, your hormones. So it wants to bring it back down. Well, beautifully created, there's a hormone that's released to bring our blood sugar back down, insulin. Insulin's released, and you come back down. How many of you have heard of the sugar crash? That's what that looks like. This is a time span of 90 to 120 minutes. And you crash back down. Like, all right, my blood sugar. Okay, so you're saying, Jason, what's the big deal? Let me have my ice cream. Let me have my pizza so that I can, you know, my insulin will come to the rescue. Well, if you keep doing that over and over, you get insulin dependent and pre-diabetic and then into diabetes. But there's more than that. Here's the deal. This hormone is wonderful for us, but it regulates our blood sugar, but it also is a storage hormone. Do you remember a few minutes ago we were talking about dietary induced thermogenesis? I said lean amount of protein will keep your body in a fat burning state naturally all throughout your day. You will naturally lean out by having bits of lean protein. Fat burning state. Insulin is a storage hormone. The fastest way to put yourself in a fat storing state is to have high glycemic foods like wheat and the other grains. All right, so insulin is going to send a message to lower blood sugar, but it's also going to send a message to store what you just ate as fat in your body. People who eat wheat, typically because of the sugar that's in it, how many of you know sugar is highly addictive? Because of the sugar in the wheat and because of the addictive properties of wheat, people who eat wheat, on average, eat 400 more calories a day than people who do not eat wheat. How many calories do you need to consume to gain a pound?
3,500.
Nailed it. Good job, Will. 3,500 calories to gain a pound. So you have to burn 3,500 calories to lose a pound, right? If I can avoid 400 calories just by not eating wheat, I'm going to do that, 400 extra calories. Because you times that by 7, that's 2,800 calories. Just by not changing, I'm having 28 extra 100 calories, I'm almost gaining a pound a week just from that, from the extra food I'm eating. All right? So that's the addictive qualities. Sends a message, store what you just ate as fat, you come back down here, everything's regulated, but this is a crash. And that crash leaves you craving. Now I'm down here and I'm kind of craving some food, and I'm a little cranky, by the way, because I just crashed down. I'm cranky, I'm craving some more food. What do? Well, typically you go back to what you just had because it's fairly addictive and it's comforting and you just want more of it. So you go back and eat some of the same stuff you just did, and that whole cycle starts all over again. And that's probably why, if you're one that says every 2 o'clock in the afternoon, what happens? I feel like I hit a wall. I feel like a truck hit me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I feel like I need a nap. I can't keep my eyes open. That's why. That's why, because you're putting yourself on this roller coaster ride and you're up and down with your hormones. And all as I'm suggesting tonight, because I know you're here, you're here because you want to live heightened levels of energy and stamina and vibrancy, and you want to show up differently in life, right? You want to be extraordinary for the people that matter most to you. It's all about nutrition. And if you and I were to change our mindset and go, what can I eat that is really going to help me show up in a big way today for work that matters most to me, for my contribution back to this world? What can I eat that's really going to help me show up in a big way for people that I love, instead of what's going to satisfy me in the moment, or what's going to make me happy, what's going to taste good to me? That was me, and that's why I yo-yo. That's why I was this. I was the yo-yo guy. But now, it's just natural. I don't fight my weight anymore. I don't fight my energy levels anymore. And so I want that for you. And I hope you want that for you too. All right, so questions on, let me give you this. So let's come way down here to 10. A glycemic index of 10, that's pretty low. Cherries. How many of y'all like cherries? Yeah, give me a cherry. Cherries, you know what else has a broccoli? Pretty much, carrots are up high, corn's a grain. Carrots are up high, but most of the vegetables are down here and they're lower glycemic, okay? So any questions on vegetables, on fruits, on carbohydrates, on the 2 buckets, what we talked about on the anti-nutrients that are wreaking havoc? Jeannie?
I was told that even if you get gluten-free products, they still make your glycemic index shoot up.
Well, it depends on what they replaced the gluten with. So if you take something out, you got to what? You got to put something in. And so a lot of the gluten is replaced with like rice flour, tapioca. There's a few others in there, and so by and large, it does raise the glycemic. But typically, you know, if you're going for a gluten-free pizza crust, I mean, it's still going to be high glycemic. Gluten-free bread. I just to be congruent with who I am and what I'm saying, the only bread that I eat is Ezekiel bread. So, and the reason why I'll have Ezekiel bread is because it has sprouted grains. What does that mean? When a grain sprouts, it's just on the verge of becoming another kernel, another head on there. And that process of sprouting, see, our wheat's not allowed to sprout anymore. And it used to be back in the old days, we didn't have the machinery. So the wheat stayed out in the field and out in the elements, and it sprouted. And when it sprouts, the great majority of the lectins and the phytates are killed off. We don't have that today. Ezekiel bread is sprouted, and so I will have Ezekiel bread. So I would avoid wheat unless it's sprouted. Very hard to get that. But Ezekiel bread is one option. Yes?
What do you tell the athlete that may go for a 30 to 50 mile bike ride that thinks he needs the grains, the pasta, the sugars to keep his energy? What would be a good substitute
Yeah.
to keep his energy level up?
Yeah, that's...
Directly into the camera?
Yeah, because I know who we're talking about. Yeah, so the question was, what do you tell a distance athlete who believes that they need a lot of carbo loading to sustain the energy levels? And really, the answer there is the body needs retraining. So the easiest energy for our bodies to consume are the carbohydrates. They're broken down into simple sugars, and they're able to burn those off. However, there was a gal that won the Wyoming Marathon, 26.2 miles, and her pre-race meal was a bison burger without a bun and some vegetables. And she crushed it. Well, over time, she had trained her body to burn fats first, and dietary fats, and then protein, and then the carbohydrates. And so it's over time, but it's a mindset shift. Overload. So for Jeff, I know we're who we're talking about. So with him, it's a lot of squash and sweet potatoes and the acorn squashes, all the squash family, which would be wonderful carbohydrates for him, as opposed to breads and pastas. Because with the squashes, you're not getting this, but you're getting a clean energy source. So, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Great question, Will.
Okay, so I'm thinking of what I like to eat, for example, apples, bananas, oranges.
Yes.
When it comes to the challenge, am I kind of just eliminating those altogether, or is it, and I'm thinking after the challenge, I like to eat those fruits. Is there time to eat them? Is it better in the day, or early in the morning, or late at night?
Yeah.
I'm trying to set my mindset to.
So the question is fruit, and let's rank them so that you know what's high, what's low, what's mid-range. Okay? So as it comes to fruit on here, I'm just going to plop them down. I'm going to write it on here. I'm not putting it in a category of 70 or 56 or 10. But number one, berries. So blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, cherries are all low glycemic. Next is melons, like honeydew and cantaloupe. Watermelon's a bit high, but honeydews and cantaloupes. After that is citrus, so grapefruit, oranges, which is one that you mentioned. Okay, so now we're kind of getting up into mid-range glycemic. Apples and pears. Grapes and bananas and papaya and mango, But again, here's the deal. If your goal is not weight loss, I wouldn't worry so much about the fruit. I choose to minimize my fruit, and the fruit that I have are berries, because I just want to naturally, I like the sweetness of them. I like the texture, I like the flavor, but I like to manage my weight as well, and so I have berries more than anything. Other than that, apples. Yeah. Good question. Yes?
I love potatoes.
Yeah.
Where are potatoes in the scheme of things?
Where are potatoes? Yeah. Potatoes are mid-range, and it's interesting, Whole 30 and that whole movement used to not have white potatoes in their Whole 30, but they have rethought that, and white potatoes are in. Of course, sweet potatoes are in as well. Here's what I do now. I don't use butter anymore. I use extra virgin olive oil on my avocado, I was going to say avocado toast. That is one thing I do have with the Ezekiel bread. But I'll just put extra virgin olive oil on my Ezekiel bread. I'll put it on my potatoes, and it's fantastic. I love it. And I just don't eat butter anymore. So, yes.
So I just love pasta so much. I can eat it every day.
Yeah.
The other day I roasted a spaghetti squash.
Yeah.
But I have no portion control, so I ate the entire squash.
Yeah.
But in my mind I was like, well, it wasn't pasta, so I dumped a whole bunch of sauce on it. Where does spaghetti squash fall in there?
Yeah, you're right. It's beautiful.
Can I eat the whole thing?
Yeah.
'Cause I did.
I mean, yes, you can. I mean, you proved that. You did that. Yeah. Should you eat the whole thing? No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should eat the whole thing. And be careful of the sauce that you're putting on there. All sauces were not created equal, and there are some sauces that don't have any sugar in them, and they're really good. And Publix has a brand or two of that, and so just be careful of the sauces. Yeah, and be careful of your salad dressings. Olive oil and or coconut oil and vinegar is awesome for salad dressing. Yes?
Cooking with oils, what are the oils that are better to use with higher heat? Like avocado oil, I've heard, is a lot better for, sauteing and
Yeah, you're right on it. So the question there was, what oil is best when you're cooking under high heat? And that would be coconut oil and an avocado oil are really good in high heat. Olive oil becomes unstable in high heat situations. I think it's around 275. It turns into a carcinogen. So you can go out back and smoke a cigarette and get the same effect. All right, so
But you can put it on salad.
salad's great, low heat, yeah, absolutely, yep. So, yes.
For those who prefer butter instead of olive oil, is there a good butter or a better butter?
Yeah, ghee. So just YouTube ghee, Ghee, and it takes the milk fat solids out, and you're left with the pure butter, ghee. And you can simply make that on your stovetop in a matter of minutes.
You can get it at Publix.
You can even buy it at Publix. There you go. I know some of you got to get going. I'm going to stay as long as you need me to for questions and answers. You had one back here? Let's do that. Oh, thank you so much. So, so dairy and legumes, okay? What are we going to do with dairy and legumes? Neither one of those would be allowed if we were doing a true Whole 30, okay? I've changed my stance on one of those. I'm not sure if it's going to be the one that you really want. Yeah, it's like, I think that the least of our worries are legumes. I used to say, hey, for 30 days or 28 days, no beans, no legumes. Why? Because they have a tendency to cause irritable bowel syndrome. Well, not everybody struggles with that, right? So if you don't struggle with irritable, the problem is a lot of us don't know it until we get off of it and then incorporate it back in one food group at a time to go, how do beans affect me, right? Oh, wow, yeah, okay, I can see how that, but legumes have lectins and phytates in them, but you can't consume legumes in their natural state. It's toxic to your body. You can't eat raw beans. So you got to cook them. Cooking them kills the lectins and the phytates. So it makes them less harmful, and that's why on occasion, if I'm having a rice bowl, I'll have some beans in there as well. Now, dairy is a whole other thing. I eliminate dairy, and if there's, on this challenge, we're going to eliminate dairy. We can limit legumes, but I would eliminate dairy. I would go with an almond milk, a cashew milk, a nut butters. Instead, dairy is the number one cause of food allergies. Dairy is highly processed. Most of dairy products have sugar in them. Dairy has palmitic acid, which increases your risk of heart disease. You want me to keep going? I mean, so it's, all that, yogurt. Yeah, yogurt's a dairy, and so all that's highly processed. Greek, yeah, I mean, okay, so that's like saying, can I have wheat bread instead of white bread? Like, okay, it still has all of the junk
Chia pudding is good though.
in it. Chia pudding, how about that? Chia pudding, so, you'd have to sweeten that, and we're not using sweeteners. So, yeah, we're not going to use that. So okay, let's camp out. All right, dairy, whether it's cheese, ice cream, yogurt, all the rest, it's, number one, it's highly processed. The processing is called pasteurization. It kills a lot of the healthful enzymes. All right, so we're going to eliminate that, plus the palmitic acid, the food allergies, all the rest. Question?
Back on the proteins, what plant-based protein?
Plant-based protein. Yeah, awesome question. So Ted's like, all right, mostly plant-based. What plant-based protein do you use? Let me address this issue about fruits and vegetables being a protein, because there's protein in fruits and vegetables. The problem is people don't eat the variety that they need, because vegetables were designed to work synergistically. And if you got a full variety, think about all the shapes, colors, and sizes of vegetables, that all means something. There's flavonoids and antioxidants and phytonutrients. that if you were to combine all those synergistically, they would equal a complete protein, and you would be fine. But I have high quality, I'm going blank. I'm thinking. What is edamame is one. Edamame is the only vegetable that I'm aware of that has a higher protein count than carbohydrate. And what am I thinking of? Shakes. Some of you are going to be, soy. Okay, so soy. So 97% of soy in America is genetically modified, and I would not recommend it. It's like Franken soy. But however, there is small amounts of soy that you can get, bits of soy that you can get that's not genetically modified and that's not acid washed. It's water washed in a much purer source. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to end with this. And then those of you who need to go, we'll have Josh come up and explain. And then I'll stay. If you guys have more questions, I'll stay as long as you need me to stay, okay? But I will say this. I have been doing nutrition seminars since 2008. That's when Trinity Fitness started in my garage. And since then began to spread. But I noticed back then there was, about 10 of us in my garage. And a couple of the guys, a couple of the gals, they got a little bit frustrated. They're like, hey, you're killing us in here. Why do I still have this? You know, what's going on back here? Why do I still have this, right? And so I had to answer that. And so that forced me to become a student of nutrition and roll up my sleeves and dig deep. And that's when I figured out, okay, this isn't all about exercise. It's about nutrition, 80% nutrition. And we have to switch. That's when I learned about switching our carbohydrate sources. And I made 2 buckets. And there's a bunch of the pastas and breads over here and the vegetables and the fruits over here. And this is where we need to camp out. But I got a lot of pushback on it. People told me, well, I don't like vegetables. Or my kids won't eat them. Or, I went to Publix and I bought a bunch of vegetables and they sat in my refrigerator and they rotted. Right? How many of you have been there before? Right? And then there's people like me who I'll eat vegetables, but I'm a creature of habit. And so I have a tendency to eat the same vegetables day in and day out. White potatoes, a couple of string beans, maybe a couple pieces of a carrot, until my palate changed. And people have a tendency to eat the same vegetables. Like I said, vegetables were meant to work synergistically with all the different shapes, sizes, and colors. So if that's you, if you struggle in that way, here's what I found. A simple product called Juice Plus. It's not, you don't have to juice anything. They do that for you. The farmers grow their produce organically and pick it at the peak of ripeness, and they dehydrate it, pulling all the water out, and they simply pulverize it and put the vegetables in a capsule. This bridges the gap for me between what I eat and what I should be eating. And I'll read this label to you. A lot of the labels today we can't read. I'm reading this label: broccoli, parsley, tomato, carrot, garlic, beets, spinach, cabbage, lemon peel, rice bran, kale. All of that in this capsule. You say, how can you get all of that in that one little capsule? I'm 5'9". At the end of my life, I'm going to be cremated. And what am I going to fit into? A little capsule, right? Because we're mostly water. So when you pull the water out and dehydrate, same thing with plants and fruits and vegetables. All the vegetables, all the fruits, all the berries, and all the omegas. And they're phenomenal. And you were asking about protein. Complete protein shake right here. That's a lot of what I eat, and it bridges the gap. Any other food? I shared with you I've got 4 kids. My youngest is Sam. He's 19 years old. He was born with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. He's had 33 surgeries, in the first 17 years of his life. And the first half of his life, he was not on Juice Plus, any of the stuff I just showed you. We didn't know about it. And then Trinity Fitness started, and I started doing my research. It took Sam 6 to 8 weeks to recover and get back into school before Juice Plus. Then our family found Juice Plus, and we got Sam on it, all of us on it. And Sam recovered in 2 weeks and was back to school in 3, repeatedly over time. One of those surgeries was on Dr. Herrera Soto, did his hip surgery. Sam's hips are dislocated. He didn't know it. It sounds bad and painful, but he doesn't feel it. He doesn't feel from the waist down. And his hips were dislocated. And Dr. Soto took some x-rays and he said, he goes, we can do this. We can pin the ball back into the socket. But he goes, I can tell you with spina bifida kids, their bone structure and their bone density, typically the screws and the pins won't stick. It's too frail. But he goes, I'll try it if you want me to. I'm like, yeah, let's try it. Sam was on Juice Plus for a few years at that point. Dr. Soto came out after surgery with his eyes as big as oranges. And he goes, what are you guys feeding this kid? That is the most thick bone density I've ever seen on a kid with spina bifida. I said, Doc, it's Juice Plus. And so if you feel like, we talked about osteoporosis tonight and getting the micronutrients that you need and the iron and the calcium, it's all there. And if you feel like you need help with fruits and vegetables, that's an option for you. You can see my wife. You can come talk to me afterwards. But that's it in a nutshell. You guys have been awesome sitting here, and I'm going to take all right, because you're Andy Waterman, I'm going to do one more. Yes. Alcohol, Mike. Thank you. All right. I knew there was a fourth. Okay. So listen, we've spent almost 60 minutes together tonight. We got started a little bit after 6 o'clock, and I think you know why I'm recommending to eliminate sugar. I mean, it's public enemy number one, and it's wreaking havoc on your life and your hormones and everything. I think you know why we're eliminating wheat. That makes sense. I hope it makes sense to you why we're eliminating wheat. We're eliminating dairy. I explained some of the downfalls to dairy. I would at least give your body a break for 28 days. If you want to incorporate dairy back at the end of 28 days, I would feel free to do that, but only reincorporate one food group at a time. Because if you get off legumes and get off dairy and get off wheat and bring them all back at the same time, you won't know how those foods affect you. So only bring one in at a time for a week, see how it affects you, then make your choice. I would do that with dairy. Alcohol, here's what I hear more than anything. Number one, alcohol. Some alcohol has sugar in it. Some has wheat in it, so there's a double whammy. But even if it doesn't have those stuff in there, remember, we want to begin to think about food and drink as what is going to help me show up in extraordinary ways. Rick, don't make any comments on this, buddy. What's going to help us really show up in extraordinary ways day in and day out for the people and the work that matter most to us? And alcohol, here's what I hear continually is, man, it drains my energy. I can't believe, when I took a break from it, I can't believe how much more energy I had. The problem is most of us fly through life and we never experiment with things like this to take time and go, well, how is that affecting my cognitive efforts? How is that, why am I so groggy and foggy? And alcohol, can lead to a lot of that in decision making. So I would, we're eliminating it for this challenge. Josh is going to come up and explain the point system. If you don't eliminate alcohol, you're just not getting any points there, right? You're losing your points. So, but I would try it. If you want to have a cheat night and have your alcohol. But try and reset your body there, okay? Again, you guys have been great. I'm going to hang around and talk a little bit more and answer questions, but I want Josh to come up because we have been here an hour, and you can lay out the challenge and go with that. Thank you, buddy.